Hello, and welcome to Chair Chat. I am Joyce Doris Coleman, Chairwoman of the Memphis-Shelby County School Board. Today, I have the honor, and it is truly an honor, to have with me District 6 Board Member, Mr. Keith Williams. We will talk about his role as a board member and what's going on in District 6. How you doing today?
I am well.
You doing all right?
I am very well.
You've been busy today. This is my second time seeing you today.
I went over to Whitehaven to the premier school of Memphis, and they had such a wonderful and glorious and accomplished program for students.
They did. They $1 million scholars.
$1 million.
$13 million for one scholar. That was awesome. Okay, we're gonna get started and have a little conversation. Okay. Can you start by sharing a bit about what inspired you to run for the school board?
After I retired from the school district with 54 years of service around here, I thought that was, if I could offer anything, it would be to strengthen or to maintain Memphis City schools at that time, or Memphis and Shelby County schools. So it was because of my experience, my long experience in the school system. And in school, this is not the only system I've worked in. I started teaching in Knoxville, Tennessee in 1972 when I finished college. But when I moved home, came to Memphis City schools in the 70s. So I came at a tumultuous time because it was the brink of integration and segregation. Saw a lot of things that I couldn't fix. So when I retired, maybe I could start fixing some of those things.
Okay, and you've been working on them.
Yeah.
You represent District 6.
Yes.
Can you share a bit about your connection to the community?
Well, of course I live there. I live in the Valleywood community, been there for about 30 years. When we moved to Memphis, we bought a home in Whitehaven. It was another area then, but my children went to school at Hayward View and Central, both my daughter and my son. So I have been there all of these years in the community, and I've served as president of my community association for years. I'm on the Whitehaven Empowerment Zone Committee, so now all of that sort of comes together when you meet with it, because when that committee meets the Whitehaven Empowerment Zone, they just have a host of questions and things they want within the schools, because the principals in the Whitehaven area are also on that committee.
Yeah.
So it's a very powerful committee. They make things happen, and of course, one of our schoolmates, the mayor of Whitehaven, is on that committee.
Oh, wow.
And she doesn't miss a meeting either. So it's a very powerful group, and they do great work.
Mr. Key, you've taught for over 50 years. Do you ever stop?
Yes, there's a stopping point in everything.
I don't want you to stop now. That's not what I'm asking you, because you're an energizing bunny.
But what I'm doing, I have retired from the Shelby County Memphis-Shelby County Education Association.
Oh, okay.
And that retirement is effective July 31st, which is my birthday. So that's a good time to leave. And I've been in that as long as I've been in teaching, period. But I will be leaving the teachers union at that time.
So we're going to have a party July 31st. I'll be ready, okay? What has been the most rewarding part of serving as a school board member so far?
Probably being of service to help guide people who really want to do better and don't know proper procedures and processes, particularly young new teachers. They need all the help and the strength and the direction they can get. Yeah. And we have lots of that on the board, and I have a lot of those experiences, and I think that has been the most rewarding thing. But two, also talking to parents is rewarding, because sometimes you can make them see the light too.
You can, you can. And then just somebody to talk to them, make them feel like they're somebody. That
and let them know it's not all about your child and all about the school, but we all have a role to play, including you.
Right. That's so true. What are some of the most pressing needs or priorities you're hearing from families and schools in your district?
Particularly, we had a period of time where they built 4 or 5 new schools over there. Maceo Walker, John P. Freeman, all of those schools were built. And now they're saying that they are falling apart, and it's the maintenance of effort. So one of the principals just will call me, well, we need this. My air doesn't work to here. I said, ma'am, this is a large system, 200 schools. We have lots of air conditioners, lots of problems, but there is a process for getting that done. But your school is a new school, so I would think that you may be, and I did try to investigate to see where she might fall on the maintenance. But they are saying, they tend to think that if it happens, it needs to be fixed today. And it doesn't happen that way. There's a process because we have so many buildings and so many properties to maintain. You got to get in line. I don't care, unless it's something that is dangerous, like power or, leaks and that kind of thing. But just to fix a roof, that's a process.
It's a
And
process.
and the district does have a process for doing that. And you will be, but your school is less than 5 years old. We wouldn't think that we would have to replace the roof this soon, but we do.
Yeah, we do, and it would help if we get more funding. That would be a big help for us.
Yes, or if we develop, and I think we have a way, you could correct me, we do have a rotating basis on which we do maintenance of schools.
We do.
I thought we did.
do.
And if it's not your season, unless there's an emergency, this is just not going to happen probably.
And we got to look at most of our schools at least 50 years, at least 50 years old. Some of them are double that. And when we replace a roof today and move across town, that one has already had problems. And again, the maintenance of effort, the funding, that's a big issue for us. But I digress, I won't fuss about that. How do you balance the needs of your district with the broader goals of MSCS as a whole?
My district is doing fairly well. I am pleased to say that their TCAP scores are off the chain in that area. Whitehaven High School is one of the highest performing in the state. So I am very pleased with their performance and what they do. And they're really trying to establish what they call the Whitehaven Empowerment Zone. I'm not advocating for it, but I have heard the principals come together to say, if we could align our curriculums with the high schools that our children will go to, they will be better served and better off. And they've had it before.
Yes, sir.
The Whitehaven Empowerment Zone. So there may be there's some chatter about that, but I just want to be certain because I was at this program this morning as you were. It was outstanding.
It really was.
To see that many children receive millions of dollars of scholarship from that school. It was just very heart-wrenching and touching, but I was very well pleased with what I saw and how well their parents came out and participated. And it was just a whole village of people.
It really was.
And it was inspiring.
And that's what several of those kids talk about, their village.
And I think that's the key. That is the key. When you get the family, the community, the home, the church, and the school together, then you have a winning team.
Yes, sir.
But when we're working separately and at odds, it's a losing team.
It's a losing team.
So when all of these people come together and decide that this is what they want is best for their children, best for the community, jobs, security, clothing, that's what we all want. And I'll just share this with you. I worked so long. I have two children of my own. One is a doctor and one is a principal.
Oh, wow.
But you have to be able to, it starts at the home.
It does.
It starts in the home of the civilization of the people that we have. So when you have people to buy it, it's easy for the school to facilitate it.
Yes, sir.
It's very easy. But you cannot, uphold children in wrong. You cannot involve them in crime. You just can't do it and think that you're going to get a good product.
You really can't.
No.
You can't. It matters.
It does
The home
matter.
life matters.
And the school has to play a role in that, and the parents. Because there was a time when the school didn't have to get the parents' permission to correct the behavior. It just happened.
It just happened.
You couldn't bring that buffoonery into the school.
Yes, sir.
I don't care how well undisciplined you were out there. When you got through that door, it stopped.
It stopped.
So, but that's when you had the support of families.
Yeah.
And William Shakespeare said hundreds of years ago, the ruin of any civilization starts in the homes of its citizens.
That's true. That's true.
And he said that over 500 years ago. So it was true then and it's true now.
It's true now. Some things that hold true then are still true, and that's one of them. What progress are you most proud of so far in District 6?
Probably what the TCAP scores, because they were outstanding in missiles. Whitehaven High School, believe it or not, is the highest performing black school in the state of Tennessee. Their scores are. So that's a phenomenal accomplishment.
Dr. Hunter's doing it over
He
there.
does a phenomenal job.
Yes, sir.
And the best kept secret, he was my principal at one time. And I worked in summer school a lot because my kids were in college. He was the principal of a summer school over at Whitehaven High.
Okay.
I worked there in summer school every summer probably, and then night school there for years, and he was my principal.
He was the principal of the school.
He was the principal of the school. He was just a little young guy, but he was very obedient and he listened to the seasoned teachers. So we got along very well, and we still do.
And that's great. I mean, it was just a pleasure to see him today, decked out in a money outfit.
He knows how to reach the
Reach the
students.
students, yeah, yeah.
And he demands respect.
And-
He
and-
commands respect.
And when you give it, you get it
You
back.
get it back.
And
Because they do know that he has the heart for those
Those
kids.
yeah.
And he will take it to any length. I mean, he was challenging the state about, remember when the test
Yes,
system
sir.
shut down? Oh, he was going at it with the
He was
state. You're
going
not
at it.
going to do us this
Yeah.
way, because it happened in Knoxville the year before, and they were able to resume the test. And there's a restart button here. We can do this test, but he fights. He's a
fights,
fighter, but
yeah.
he's fighting for what is right
Yes,
for
sir.
children.
And he's got a great advocate in you.
Well, he has that. We've got two good warriors to start a war.
Yeah, he has a great advocate in you
Yeah.
for your community, for your schools.
Well, that is my
And-
community. And of course, you see, we have Fairley is there. They're coming up since they're back in the district. But that was one of the schools the state took, remember?
Right.
And they came back worse than they left.
They sure did.
So we have to now repurpose them. And he really, this young man, Vincent Hunter, he said, Mr. Williams, we could do something to help Fairley and Westwood. I said, sure we can. So we'll see.
We'll see. Yeah. How do you stay connected with your constituents?
I'm on so many committees out there now. We meet almost weekly. We met yesterday at the school. I mean, all of the principals come, all the preachers come. So they have a lot of a lot of things that they
Right.
want done. But Hazel Coleman, the mayor of Whitehaven, she dominates it. Then Miss Davis, and they're always there, and they love it. They really love what they do because they are sincere about capturing, saving, and maintaining the culture in Whitehaven.
And it's a buy-in.
It is.
You
It
know,
really is. It really
It's
is.
a buy-in. I can't ask you to do something for my community that I'm not doing myself.
It's true.
As a board member, collaboration is key. How do you build relationships with fellow board members, district leaders, and community partners?
You have to see the perspective of all. The perspective of a community leader may be very different from that of a board member.
Yes, sir.
And certainly that of the administration. But as long as the focus is about how you're going to improve instruction and how you're going to maintain this culture, a climate of teaching and learning, it works.
It works.
But now, if you're coming up with some buffoonery that's not just addressing any of that, then there's no reason to even entertain it. Yeah. You need to tell me, what impact are you expecting? How long is it we gonna take to see it? And what will the work be?
Yeah.
And we can move forward.
Yeah.
But we're not out here just like, we have a role to play. We have a sincere role. We are just as connected to these children as the family.
Yes, sir.
So the family, the school, the church, we have a role to
have a
play.
role.
So we have to fulfill our obligation.
Yes, sir.
We really do.
I was telling Board Member Otay earlier that if somebody say, what's the one word you could say about each one of your board members to describe them? And I would say, for Mr. Williams, teacher, student centered. I know that's more than one word, but if it's not about the teachers, if it's not about making sure the students have what they need, Mr. Keith Williams is not interested in even talking to
because
you about
you know what? It is just categorically almost ungodly to test over what you don't teach. If you haven't exposed them to what they're going to have to do, then what do you expect to get?
Yeah.
So it's your duty to teach. I taught long enough to know, and sometimes you know that, well, this is not important, this is more important. But I did find out, because I was an English teacher, and there were some things that were not in the curriculum, but I knew that if they knew this, they'd be able to pass the test.
Yes, sir.
So I taught it.
You taught it.
I had to sneak and teach it, but I taught it. And the scores were self-evident.
Yeah.
For example, there are only 39 propositions in the English language. And propositions serve a huge purpose in grammar because the answer to the question is always behind the preposition. That's just a teaching strategy that all children know. So if you learn those 30, now when we were in school, we had to learn the 39 propositions. Now you know what they are. They simply connect and do things. But once you can identify the proposition in a sentence, then the answer is behind it.
It's behind it. See, you teaching TCAP and don't even know it.
I always have. That's what
teaching
I do,
TCAP.
because that's just a strategy. So, and there are only 39 prepositions. And Miss Eccles used to require you to just learn them. You got to know them. And they all gave directions up and down, up, those kinds of things. But it's a part of speech that finds answers.
And maybe we need to talk about ways that those simple, what we think are simple tools to help our students
Because
can be
remember,
broadcast.
they don't even teach parts of speech anymore.
No.
So if they learn them by osmosis on their own. But you still ought to know. My children knew the 39 prepositions when they saw it. But I was, the first test taking strategy you're going to do, you take the ACT, read the question, find the preposition.
Well, everybody didn't have Mr. Keith or Mr. Keith Williams or Miss Gloria Williams for parents.
Well, two teachers were overbearing, but the kids went on to be very successful.
Very successful.
And I'm proud of them. My grandkids now in mid school, so I'm just happy all over
All
again.
over again.
Yeah.
You have a legacy.
Yes,
you
to
do have a
leave.
legacy.
You're right.
What are some lessons you've learned about educational leadership since been in this role?
You know what the greatest thing I've learned, and you probably are going to be surprised, as long as I stayed at a school, I never thought about the business part of it. It's so many, not deals, not strategic, but so much money
So much money.
involved in what schools need.
Yes, sir.
And it's not all instructional stuff.
No, sir.
You know, these folks talking about my lights not fixed, my air, I thought, God, where did all this come from? But you know what I think that lends itself to, Chair? When we were in school, you had building engineers, you had people who were workers in the building who maintained and had just as much respect and authority as a teacher.
Yes, sir.
They were adults in that building. Now we have gotten to the outsourcing model, and I think that's sort of showing up on us.
Yes.
Because when people outsource, they only do what they do. They don't maintain anything. But they do what they do. But the people who worked for this Board of Education, who were employees, who had benefits, they took pride in keeping those schools clean and the food being good. The cafeteria workers were just as happy if you enjoyed the meal. These folks now, they don't, you like it or not, because this is what you're going to get. So we may have to look at, and I don't know how it happens. You would know more than I. Bringing some of this stuff back into the house.
Back in the house. We need to have that conversation. Because we talk about our cleanliness of our buildings, and we have nothing against the cleaning services that we
do not.
have.
We do not.
But if they became in-house, will we see a difference?
When I was at Melrose High School, when you were there, the custodian had as much authority as the teacher.
Yeah.
They were adults. You couldn't walk around in this street and say anything to those people you wanted to, because they could take you to the office too.
They take you to the office.
So it's just a matter of being respectful. And when you are an adult at a school, you have a role to play.
Right.
I don't care what your job is over there. When I taught at Northside, the people love. We had the cafeteria workers. I could bring my food; they would fix it up. You just had a connection. You don't have that anymore. You just don't have it. You don't have it.
That's so true. Bring back that lady that made them butter cookies.
Yeah. You sat in line to get a
butter cookies.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. My last question: what message do you want to send to the families, students, and educators of District 6 as we move forward?
Everyone has a role to play.
Yes, sir.
And let me tell the mamas and daddies something too. You have a role to play as well.
Yes, sir.
You have a responsibility to get your child to school, to make sure their conduct is proper, clothing, and all of that. That's just a family role, because what happens in the home goes into the school.
It goes into the school.
Now, the school is not there to rear children, but we're going to reinforce what you've done for them. But if you allow a child to run your house, they think they can run the school.
That's so true.
And that's a problem.
Yes, sir.
That is a problem. For a child in the first grade, and I've seen this before, hit a teacher. How do you get 6 years old and hit an adult? Where did that happen?
Yeah.
Where have you done? Who has sanctioned that? Because that could get you hurting somehow.
Yes, sir.
But
I got an address. I know it'll get you hurt.
In some houses. So you just don't. And I taught school a long time. I was in administration for some, because I worked in curriculum before I left. But I knew it was time for me to go when a parent came up and accused the teachers of not being intuitive and excited for her child to want to come to school, so therefore she won't come. I said, but are you feeding and housing her? I said, so she gets to decide whether or not she wants to come to school? Well, she said there's nothing going on. I said, ma'am, she's a child. You are the adult. Yeah. You cannot let a child tell you what they're going to do in your house. And so she said, since her daughter said that she wasn't, it was no benefit for her to come, she didn't see the reason to come. So she came up to, I said, man, that doesn't make sense.
That makes no sense.
But that's the thinking of it. But, there was a time when we were more stringent on how many days you could miss. But now a child could be gone 100 days and we not even know it. There are no parole officers at Thompson, but schools, the funding is depending on that. But I'm saying it to say this, that we have some good parents now.
Yes, sir.
But you have a responsibility.
Yes, you
You
do.
have the first responsibility
Yeah.
of rearing your children. And then you can demand the same from the teacher.
Yes, sir.
You don't want a teacher mistreating your child either.
No, you
Because you
don't.
know what I think of so much? Since I started teaching during the brink, it was segregated schools when I started. I worked in Shelby County schools when they integrated. And I saw so much stuff that I didn't like.
Right.
I saw so much that as a teacher, you were not going to give me the right to paddle this child and couldn't paddle this one. But that's what it was when you integrated, because you
Right.
could not paddle the Caucasian children, even if you had some and you didn't have to admit. But the African Americans, I thought this is a standard that will not last,
Yeah.
and it couldn't last. But I'm just old, and I've been there, I've seen that, done that. Melrose High School, as you know, it was just a different place at a different
It
time.
really was. Yes,
When
sir.
you stepped on that campus, you had respect.
Yeah.
Everybody on that campus that was grown.
Yes, sir.
And if you didn't, they had a place for you.
They had a place for, and it was not inside the
Not
halls.
inside the hall. Do you remember the salad bell?
Yes, sir.
We used to have salad bells, and people said, "What was a salad?" We had 3 bells a day. One would ring in the morning at lunchtime, and you would have to stop and be still in whatever you were doing. He would ring another bell, and the females could move. Then he could ring another one, and it was nothing but discipline.
That's it.
It was nothing but discipline. If you didn't know what was going on, you would know what to do. They knew that you didn't belong there.
Yeah.
But those bells was there as long as I could remember. I know they don't have that now, but it was just a way to control the environment and the culture.
And that's what's missing: a controlled environment and culture.
It is.
But we're gonna get back to where we need to
I
be.
hope so.
We
I
are.
hope I live to see it.
You will. You will.
I hope so.
Because we got to let our young people know that their education is the most important thing that they can have.
Yeah, because once you get it, you got it.
You got it.
And no one can take it away from
No,
you.
sir. I tell my grandkids, I told my kids and I tell my grandkids, once you get your knowledge, your education, no, I can take a whole
It's
lot
permanent.
from you,
Yeah.
but I cannot take your education.
That's true. That is true. And it only gives you the ability to rightly divide and make good decisions.
It does.
That's what it does. And you don't, absent of that, you're going to make some mistakes, yes. But if you don't have a way to process information and to get thinking then you make wrong decisions.
You make wrong decisions. And you talk about doing the wrong, thinking you're doing right. That's what happens.
Because it's unfathomable to think that a child in the first grade could bring a pistol to school. I can't even get my head around that.
I can't even.
But the mother's thing was, I was in the bed when she left. Well, good God. I could have gone that you in the bed.
Yeah.
She could have shot you. But the idea behind it is that the ruin of any civilization starts in the homes of its citizens.
Yes, sir.
So goes the house. Baby, you be done for. The school would not be able to maintain the chaos. The police department, it would be a full-time job. Because you don't get to tell me in my house what you gonna do.
That's true. Mine either.
Now, you have some parameters and some limits, but you don't run the house
Yes, sir.
and spend my money. And my mother used to say it. I thought, she doesn't mean that. She would say to me sometimes, I wouldn't feed a dog that didn't bark. I said, what does that mean? You gonna put, in other words, you got to do what I tell you to do.
You do, yeah.
So, and I got it, but they were sticklers on knowing, and they were from the generation, yours too, that we have to do better than they did.
Yeah.
You got to do this. This is what you have to do to make it.
You have to do
and it
it.
pays off.
It pays off.
And I expect more of my children than I did got. I expect them to live better than I did.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
And I worked, that's why I worked so hard. My wife has been at Snowden School 42 years.
Jesus.
At that one school. And when we moved back to Memphis, she was at South Haven High. That's where she taught Reverend Orr. And he became so attached to her, and he would spend as many nights at our house as he would spend at her. She said, but Keith, he's brilliant, he's smart, he just needs this, he needs that. I said, but you can't be bringing him up at our house. Our daughter was about the same age, but they grew up like sisters and brothers. And he's so thankful to her now because she made sure, she said he's brilliant. And then he would tell her, Mr. Williams, I'm a preacher. She would say, stop saying that, you're going to be a doctor. But he's a doctor of philosophy. So, and now we're members of the church and everything as well.
That's so awesome.
But she put all of her confidence. She said, no one is helping this child. She said, he is too smart not to make it. And she believed in Bartholomew. Oh, I tell you that.
And we're blessed to have educators like that now.
Yeah, that's right.
They see the good in our students, and I call them, you know what I call them, my babies.
Your babies. Mm-hmm.
They see the good in my babies that they may not see in themselves.
Exactly.
And we thank our educators. We thank you. How many lives in your many years of educating did you change? Did you impact? Did they were started down the wrong road and they said, no, Keith Williams gonna be at school today. I can't do that. And that means something. That means so much. And I want to take this time to say personally and professionally that we thank you. This is not easy.
No.
Over 50 years in the system, you've given your life. Now it's time for you and Miss Glory to start doing some vacationing and traveling.
That's true.
But we don't want to lose you on the school board. I mean, I'm caught between a rock and a hard place because I want you all to enjoy the fruits of your labor. But we also enjoy the wisdom, because when you start talking about what we're doing and not doing for the teachers, we know we all have to sit up and take note. And we thank
But I
you.
think this board is very accountable. This board, as I see it today, is somewhat a little different from before, but this board is responsive to the needs of children.
Yes, sir.
And teachers.
Yes,
and they've
sir.
shown that now.
Yeah,
They can't, you could say what you want to, but we might be as discombobulated as you think we are, but we do what is right by children and
Yes,
teachers.
sir. We sure do.
We really do. And our employees, I
Yes,
think.
sir.
We do entertain that. It's not like you're working in a slave market or yard. We do try to do what is best for those who deliver instruction and the children who receive it.
Right. That's true. Well, I want to thank you, and thank you for joining me today. It's been a pleasure. Just every time I get a chance to talk to you, I learn more, and I thank you for that.
Well, thank you. You know, she's a Melrose girl, too,
Yes,
just
sir.
like I am.
Yes,
so I'm a
sir.
Melrose man, and she's a Melrose girl. So we did learn that pride and humility is the key.
That's what we serve with.
The slogan of the school.
Yes,
that is
sir.
the, whatever they called it then. But that's the
our
school
slogan.
mantra.
Yes,
Yep.
sir. And I want to thank our viewers for watching today's episode of Cheer Chat. Thank you.